So the first step is going to be to sanitize all of our equipment. I'm going to use my primary fermenter here, and I'm going to add the sanitizing powder. You add hot water to this, or at least warm water, mix it up, and then I'll sanitize all of my winemaking tools in here before I get to actually putting the kit together. Okay, now that we have sanitized all of our equipment, it's time to actually start making some wine. You can see here that I've used the bucket lid as a sort of sanitary plate to keep everything on, as opposed to trying to sanitize an entire table or work area. We'll just stick to what's already been sanitized. And the first step is going to be to add 1/2 gallon of hot water. We'll stir this vigorously, and we will add the bentonite to that. You want to stir vigorously while adding. What we're looking for here is to see if we've got any chunks left over, and it looks like at this point the bentonite is pretty well dissolved. It's got kind of a greenish brownish tint to it. Now we're going to get the wine into our primary fermenter. This is quite heavy, so you want to be careful. And on the lid there's a little cardboard flap here, and you punch out one little piece of cardboard, and the neck of the wine bag here is going to poke through the top of the box, and it will attach to the lid, so you don't have to try to handle the wine bag on its own. Okay, so now we have our wine lid secured to the box, and this, I'm going to go ahead and remove this cap, and then we'll get started pouring it in. So the entire contents have been added to the bucket, and at this point we need to add some water to the bag to kind of stir out any additional grape juice that might be in there and go ahead and capture. And now that we've got it topped up and we've got our kit bag, concentrate bag rinsed out, we're going to go ahead and stir this vigorously for 30 seconds to get everything mixed in together. And now that this is mixed, we're going to take a sample so that we can test the specific gravity before we move on to adding. So again, with the wine thief, we can just depress this down into the wine, lifting up our valve at the bottom seals. So now we've got a sample of our wine that we can pour into the test jar, trying not to get this everywhere. And let's see what we have. Okay, so we've mixed the concentrate, we've rehydrated it in our sanitized equipment, we've topped it up to the full 6-gallon mark in our primary fermenter. We have taken our specific gravity reading, we've taken a temperature reading to correct the specific gravity measured from the hydrometer, and at this point we can move on to adding our oak and our yeast. So this is our oak chips that we're going to be adding to our primary fermenter. It's a decent sized bag here. I'll go ahead and open it. And yeah, this is just a sawdust. Oh, it smells good though. So we'll go ahead and add our oak to the wine. The yeast that came with this particular wine kit is a Premier Cuvée, and the instructions say to just open it up and then sprinkle across the top of the wine here, and we'll go ahead and start that. The yeast is supposed to activate itself, so despite the directions on the yeast packet, you don't need to activate it, and just make sure that you're in the proper temperature range before you add this yeast. They stress that point very strongly. We've got the yeast in 24 to 48 hours. It should start to ferment on its own. We're going to go ahead and make sure this lid is on nice and tight. Now, our airlock has a tube that goes through the middle that will be inserted into our lid, and then around the outside is where you want the water to sit. So we're going to pour water in there, and then this little cap will sit over the tube. As the CO2 is released from the wine during fermentation, the CO2 will come up and then over the top of this, and you'll see bubbles coming up the sides on this thing, and the cap that goes on the very top is ventilated so that CO2 can come out. So we've got some nice clean water here that we'll pour in. Okay, so we've got our water in. We have our cap, and then this is the ventilated lid I was telling you about. And then this will just slide down into this rubber hole. It is a very tight fit, so you have to work with it a bit, and you want to be careful that you don't force this little rubber gasket through the lid. Alright, so that guy's in there nice and tight, the lid's on nice and tight. So we'll check back in about a day or so when it is bubbling up, and that'll be how you can tell your fermentation is going. You'll see the bubbles actually coming through this, and this is also how you'll tell when it's starting to slow down and it may be time to rack off the lees into your carboy when these bubbles space out pretty far. So that's it for this session, and I'll see you again soon when we start to have our fermentation. And if you'd like more information, stop by winemakersacademy.com, and if you have any questions or comments for me, feel free to leave those on the blog or email me at matt@winemakersacademy.com.